Good evening and welcome to the news at 10. His Majesty King Abdullah asserted it should never be tolerated for Jordanian universities to become a place of violence or to harbor extremism, saying universities are there for all the country's sons and daughters without exclusion. In a meeting with presidents of public universities at Al-Husseiniya Palace, King Abdullah said the recurrence of violence on campus is a red line and will never be accepted. His Majesty urged cooperation and collective effort by stakeholders so that 2017 will mark a new start for a new university life where students enjoy a positive environment. He said professors must set a role model and instill in students the spirit of motivation and the values of innovation, entrepreneurship, and good citizenship, calling for action that guide the youth and builds their capacity so they can compete in work market and meet employment needs. For their part, university officials listed measures in place or underway to curb violence and promote a climate that encourages excellence and safeguards the youth against extremist ideologies. Separately, His Majesty received German Defense Minister Ursula von der Leyen to discuss Jordanian-German cooperation, mainly in the areas of training and knowledge sharing in military and security fields. The meeting at Al-Husseiniya Palace also dealt with ongoing developments in the region, as well as international efforts to counter terrorism and terror gangs in a holistic approach. His Royal Highness Prince Hashem bin Hussein and a number of civic and military officials were present at the meeting. The King and the German minister highlighted the need to continue coordination and consultations on regional crises. The German minister highlighted the importance of Jordan's stability to the region, voicing appreciation of the kingdom's efforts to address regional crises and the need to continue bilateral cooperation and consultations on various issues. His Royal Highness Prince Hashem bin Hussein, deputizing for His Majesty the King, attended a ceremony by the Minister of Awqaf and Islamic Affairs in celebration of Prophet Muhammad's birthday anniversary. The ceremony marking Al-Mawlid, which falls tomorrow, was held at the Mosque of King Abdullah, the founder, in Abdali. And elsewhere in the country, Jordan kicked off the holy season festivities with the lighting up of a Christmas tree at the baptism site on the eastern bank of the River Jordan. The event, organized by the Ministry of Tourism in collaboration with the Baptism Site Commission, aimed at sending a message of peace and represent the spirit of coexistence among Jordanians. Minister of Tourism Lina Annab led the ceremony yesterday afternoon at the site in the presence of religious leaders and members of the Christian community. A bombing at Cairo's largest Coptic cathedral has left at least 25 people dead and 49 wounded, many of them women and children attending Sunday Mass. It was the deadliest attack carried out against Christian population in recent years. And Coptic Pope Tewodros II cut short a visit to Greece after learning of the attack, and church officials said they would not allow the bombing to create sectarian differences. The government of Jordan condemned as a cowardly terrorist attack the bomb attack in Cairo's Coptic Cathedral and expressed solidarity with Egypt in battling terrorism. State Minister for Media Affairs and Communication Mohammed Al-Momani reiterated the kingdom's unchanging stand that opposes all forms of terror acts regardless of its motives. The minister offered condolences to the families of the victims and wished for a quick recuperation to the wounded. The Syrian army and its allies made new gains in Aleppo, forcing rebels back into an ever-shrinking pocket, but lost control of the desert city of Palmyra to Daesh terrorists. Heavy shelling and air raids pounded Aleppo's rebel enclave from midnight yesterday throughout this morning, with explosions at a rate of more than one a minute. The army made new gains south of Aleppo's historic citadel, including the Maadi and Al-Asila district, as well as the southern portion of the Karm al-Da'da neighborhood. Meanwhile, Syrian state television reported that Palmyra had fallen once again to the terrorist group, saying the army was fighting to regain control of the ancient city. Russia earlier said it had repelled the terrorists, forcing them to retreat to the outskirts of the city by launching more than 60 airstrikes. But the group fought their way into Palmyra today, forcing government forces to retreat to the south. The Syrian army first recaptured the city from Daesh in March, but the group launched a surprise advance on the city on Thursday, taking control of nearby oil and gas fields and pushing towards an airbase used by Russian forces. Meanwhile, the United States and Russia tabled a proposal for a secure and dignified evacuation of all rebel fighters, their families, and civilians from eastern Aleppo. Rebel leaders said the evacuation of fighters and civilians would be carried out over a 48-hour period under the oversight of the United Nations. In a copy of the proposal seen by Reuters, the evacuation would take place through a number of passages leaving the city. Also under the proposal, fighters from the Nusra Front would only be allowed to go from Aleppo to Idlib province, while rebels from groups are allowed to go to other destinations, including areas near the Turkish border northeast of Aleppo. Rebel fighters would also be allowed to take light weapons with them, but must leave heavy weapons behind. Rebel factions within the city are yet to respond to the proposal. Iraqi army forces said they were advancing in the fight to retake Ghanous village south of Mosul from Daesh. Backed by Sunni tribal fighters, army troops engaged in heavy machine gun clashes with terrorists holed up in the village about 70 kilometers south of Mosul. The forces have been fighting for the control of the village for almost a week now, but Daesh has hit back with suicide car bombs and rocket-propelled grenades. Further north, the Iraqi army said it took full control of 2 more districts of East Mosul, pushing back the terrorist group in a slow and hard-fought advance into the city, whose 1 million residents face growing shortage of fuel, water and food. The Ministry of Defense also released footage of airstrikes they had carried out targeting Daesh hideouts in Nineveh and Salah ad-Din provinces. In Turkey, a Kurdish militant group claimed responsibility for the twin bomb attack on police officers outside a football stadium in Istanbul, and 10 people have been detained so far. The death toll rose to 38 people, while 166 sustained injuries, most of them hospitalized and some in intensive care. The blast occurred near a stadium after a car bomb hit a police vehicle and a suicide bomber detonated a suicide vest, with the 2 attacks taking place in quick succession. Today was declared a day of national mourning as flags were flown at half-mast. President Tayyip Erdogan said the explosion aimed to maximize casualties and reiterated the government will remain steadfast.
What we must focus on is this terror burden. Our people should have no doubt we will continue our battle against terror until the end. If they plan to intimidate us with these attacks, we have not degraded ourselves to leave the arena to those cowards.
Jordan has strongly condemned the terrorist blast in Istanbul last night that killed and injured dozens of innocent people. The government said the attacks highlight the need for concerted international efforts to eradicate terror groups. State Minister for Media Affairs and Communication, Mohammed Al-Momani, offered the government's condolences over the death of innocent lives. Italian President Sergio Mattarella gave Foreign Minister Paolo Gentiloni a mandate to form the country's new government and lead Italy out of a political crisis caused by the resignation of Matteo Renzi. Renzi resigned last week after losing a referendum on constitutional reform on which he had staked his job. 60-year-old Gentiloni immediately began consultations with politicians, saying the new government would move within the same framework as the ongoing one. Gentiloni's new role will not be official until he chooses his cabinet and secures a vote of confidence in Parliament, probably early this week. The biggest and most immediate crisis facing the incoming Prime Minister is a financial one. Gentiloni is set to be Italy's 5th Prime Minister in as many years and the 4th in a row to take office without winning a national election. The world's longest and deepest rail tunnel opened to travelers today in Switzerland. Gotthard Tunnel, a 57-kilometer long, has been under construction for 17 years and is designed to last a century. The tunnel is part of a $22.6 billion infrastructure project to speed passengers and cargo by rail under the mountain chain that divides Europe's north and south. Around 260 freight trains and 65 passenger trains will traverse the tunnel daily. The rail route goes over the pass in a series of loops and tunnels, and the new flat route means even heavy trains will need only one locomotive rather than 2 or 3. The first people to travel through the tunnel were 500 lucky winners, plus guests from the 130,000 who entered a ticket lottery for the inaugural trip.
Meraviglioso, tanto simbolico.
Cristiano Ronaldo, Lionel Messi, Antoine Griezmann, Luis Suarez and Gareth Bale are the favorites to win the 2016 Ballon d'Or at the ceremony in Paris tomorrow. Ronaldo helped Portugal win Euro 2016 and also won the Champions League with Real Madrid. Bale also helped Real Madrid to their 11th European title before leading Wales to the Euro 2016 semi-finals. Messi led Argentina to the final of a Copa Sarantina and won La Liga with Barcelona. Suarez won the Golden Shoe for being the top goal scorer in Europe during the 2015-2016 season. And Griezmann earned a spot with his performances for France at Euro 2016. But Ronaldo is the odd-one favorite to win tomorrow. Tokyo 2020 Olympic organizers, including the Japanese Prime Minister, celebrated the start of construction of the new Olympic Stadium. Construction of the newly designed centerpiece National Stadium begins more than a year behind schedule after game organizers had to tackle a series of broken promises and problems in the preparations, including scrapping the original stadium design. The competition to design the new stadium was won by Japanese architect Kengo Kuma in December last year. Kuma is known for blending traditional Japanese style with modern elements, and his design for the new national stadium incorporates wood and layers of eaves. Construction is scheduled for completion in November 2019. And finally, cold temperatures with partly cloudy skies prevail for the rest of tonight with northwesterly light winds. Tomorrow, a slight rise in temperature is in the forecast, but it remains relatively cold in most regions with southeasterly moderate winds. The Gulf of Aqaba should continue to expect fair conditions tomorrow with northerly light winds and calm seas. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. To end the news, here's a reminder of our top stories. His Majesty the King says violence on campus is a red line and should not be tolerated, asserting that public universities are for all of Jordan's sons and daughters without exclusion. 49 wounded as they attended Sunday Mass. And the world's longest and deepest rail tunnel at 57 kilometers long opens to travelers in Switzerland after construction work spanning 17 years, designed to last a century. With that, we come to the end of tonight's news. I'm Nancy Khair. Thank you for watching and have a good night.